Democrats still struggling to find the funds to finish drafting their massive $3.5 trillion spending bill, now looking to raise taxes on corporations and reverse some of the 27 tax cuts. This, of course, coming at a time when there's still no clear path to passing either this package or even the infrastructure bill at this point. Now, polls show a vast majority of Americans, regardless of how much money they make, still think taxes are way too high. Ballotpedia's Scott Rasmussen joins us right now with his recent poll numbers. Scott, good Wednesday morning. Not surprising here. 76% of voters believe taxes are too high. Just 9% believe they're too low. 8% think they're about right. So how does this break down in demographics? Who thinks they're too low?
Well, hardly anybody, to be honest. I mean, 77% of men and 75% of women say taxes are too high. The greatest other perspective that we found came among supporters of Bernie Sanders and his policies. But even among that group, only 18%, less than 1 out of 5, believe taxes are too low, and 67% of Sanders supporters believe they are too high. Jen, I think the only surprise here is sometimes in polling we find a larger number who say taxes are about right.
And what's interesting is that there's also these fears that taxes will be increased even before any of these spending bills get passed in Congress. Do voters feel their income taxes will increase even after Biden promised not to tax anyone making less than $400,000 a year?
61% of voters say it is likely that Biden will increase middle-class taxes. And I've got to say this, Jen, in the poll, before I asked the question, I said President Biden has promised not to raise taxes on anybody earning less than $400,000 a year. And then we asked, do you think he's likely to raise these taxes? That may be a comment on the tax situation, the reconciliation bill, or President Biden. It may also be a reflection that voters don't trust any politicians when they talk about not raising taxes.
Well, House Democrats, as we know, want to raise corporate taxes by 5.5%. Not good when inflation already out of control, and many fear companies will just pass that along to the consumer, right? How do Americans feel when it comes to government regulations on businesses?
Well, if we talk about small businesses, 48% think regulation of small business in America today is too strict. Only 11% say it's not strict enough. The numbers flip, though, when you talk about big companies. On the larger businesses, just 23% say that they are too strict. 40% say not strict enough. And Jan, more broadly speaking, 6 out of 10 voters say it's really important to limit the power of these giant corporations.
And there's also a substantial gender gap on this topic as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Women, by a 3-to-1 margin, 46% to 15%, say that taxes on big companies are not strict enough. Men are evenly divided. Now, the gap is a bit smaller when you come to small businesses. 54% of men say they're too strict. 42% of women say they are too strict. But on this issue of regulation, there is a significant gender gap.
All right. And finally, I want to talk about the generic congressional ballot if the election were held today and how each party did after specifically Biden's speech about the COVID vaccine mandate.
You know, it's interesting. The president's speech and the mandate generated a lot of heat. They created more enthusiasm about this election, but the enthusiasm was all across the board. It didn't benefit any one side. So before the speech, we found that 40% of voters said they would vote for a Republican, 40% for a Democrat. After the speech, exact same numbers, 40 to 40. In both cases, the most motivated voters, if you look at that segment, Republicans had a modest advantage.
Scott Rasmussen, great to see you on this Tuesday. Or is it? It's
Happy
Wednesday. It's Wednesday now. I don't like it when I go backwards. It's bad when I say Thursday when it's Wednesday, but it is Wednesday.
You were younger yesterday, though. It's good.
All right. I don't want to go backwards. All right, Scott. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Have a good one.